Hello, my soul-seeking friends. It's Shanna. Thank you so much for listening to Sense of Soul podcast. Enlightening conversations with like-minded souls from around the world, sharing their journey of finding their light within, turning pain into purpose, and awakening to their true sense of soul. If you like what you hear, show me some love and rate, like, and subscribe. And consider becoming a Sense of Soul Patreon member, where you will get ad-free episodes, monthly circles, and much more. Now go grab your coffee, open your mind, heart, and soul. It's time to awaken. Hey listeners, if you haven't checked out one of Sense of Soul's sacred circles, I invite you to go to Sense of Soul Patreon and check out when the next circle is, a safe space to connect and an opportunity to support and feel supported with other like-minded souls. So I hope to see you there. And for today's episode, I have Art Giser. He's an NLP trainer, a medical researcher, a healer, intuitive, a leadership and team specialist for major corporations, and has had 4 decades studying psychic development, plus energetic and spiritual healing. Art has been blessed to receive 2 empowerments directly from the Dalai Lama of Tibet, including one to increase his ability to heal others. And he is the creator of Energetic NLP, which combines the best of neuro-linguistic programming, energy healing, intuition, and spiritual transformation. Through studying with developers of NLP and prominent spiritual leaders, Art has continued to develop energetic NLP to the wonderful field that it is today. This system has simple tools and techniques that allow you to clear and develop your energy field to promote personal development on all levels. In addition, you can use the tools to do energy healing for others, to unleash their miraculous self. And it is my honor to have Art with us today, and I look forward to this conversation. Nice to meet you, Art. How's it going?
Great to see you.
How are you doing?
Oh, great. I was just, ever heard of Lilydale?
No.
It's this old spiritualist community, like 150 years old in West Buffalo in New York. And I taught a workshop there last Friday and then hung out, and there were healings every morning and meditations and in great energies and a little lake. It's like summer camp, is a little lake, a woods.
Oh, nice. I like that. I live in Colorado, and I haven't really made it to the east very much.
Mm.
I'd like to eventually.
I live in California, mainly in the Hollywood Hills, LA, but part-time San Francisco. So visiting my niece and great nephews in Rhode Island. So up in the attic.
I'm actually in my daughter's bedroom right now, which she's got guinea pigs. They keep running around. Hopefully we won't hear them.
One of the places I studied psychic development, it was pretty noisy. And at first it annoyed me. And they never said this, but I realized part of what they were teaching us is it didn't have to be pristine. You didn't have to be sitting by a waterfall.
Yeah.
I do readings for people at airports and, just realizing like, yeah, it's great if it's pristine, but to think you need it is a limitation.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think some of my favorite conversation has been in the middle of chaos. So
I was just listening to you with Neil Donald Walsh and a couple of other podcasts. So I love your style and philosophy and everything. So
same. I feel the same way, Art. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you coming on. I look forward to, talking about energetic NLP. So how did you get to where you are, Art?
When I was a kid, I was interested in 2 things. One, to be a scientist when I grew up, but the other was I just knew there were all these powers of the unconscious mind and ESP. I knew all that. I just knew it was real. And in fact, in elementary school, I would hypnotize friends and cousins. And my mom tells me we were in the library and I wanted to check out a book on hypnosis. I was really young, so the librarian wouldn't let me check it out. So my mom checked it out for me. And she said the librarian gave her this, "You're a terrible mother" look.
Wow. So you've been a seeker like your whole life, basically.
Yeah. But then I never went deep. I was interested a little bit in Hinduism and Buddhism at a time when, and even I did a little yoga in elementary school, but I never went deep with anything. But just was fascinated by these different kinds of ways of thinking. And then I became a medical researcher, a health science researcher for many years, and then discovered NLP and really got into energy work and healing. And
You wear lots of
yeah,
hats and you've studied lots of things. So did you have like a rooted religion that you were connected to?
well, my parents had been raised Orthodox Jews, but they raised us as Reform Jews. My father had a very like natural spirituality, like in World War II in the Pacific. He would, even though he was in the Navy, they signed him to the Marines, and who were very redneck and didn't like Jews. But he ended up leading the group. He was their spiritual leader. He'd lead them in prayers and stuff. And because it was just something about him that it was a very deep kind of natural spirituality. Not that I think he ever studied anything other than Judaism, but he just had a deep connection to spirit. And he was one of the early mainframe computer guys. Maybe partially why I wanted to be a scientist when I grew up.
Wow. So you were aware of technology probably earlier than a lot of people then.
Oh yeah, when people didn't know what the word meant. And I
Right.
was the rug rat when they took up rooms and it was under the floor, and back in the 50s, and we went to California because they taught him electronics in the military radar and stuff. And somehow he got hired to run the second or third commercial mainframe computer. And so we went to California to do that.
Wow. So what's your thoughts on AI then now?
Um, well, I love it on one level. I'm aware, it's like well, I compare it to NLP. Like sometimes people go, well, NLP, isn't that all about power and manipulation? And I go, well, no more than any other powerful, no more than spirituality, psychology, medicine. You go, that's not what it's about. You can use it that way. So, I mean, there's some amazing things about AI, and it's scary too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Because I guess it's just the uncertainty is what's scary.
yeah, it's sort of ultimately, more and more and more what's possible. But it's amazing now. I mean, I can even ask it like, what's Art Giser's philosophy, and it comes up with
You know,
it's pretty darn good.
I've actually argued with it and won.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that it was one of my first conversations. And I was like, no, and kind of went back and forth and had to have it find the information to see
Wow.
where I was going.
Yeah, you can upload data, you can put in conditions and stuff, and then you get a lot better results. Actually, I've
Okay.
taken some courses on it and I'm learning. And where I really like it is when I'm writing. Sometimes you just go, I don't like the way I've written this, but I don't know how else to say it. I can
Yeah.
put it in AI and go, write this 20 different ways. I may not like anything it does, but
Right.
I go, oh, I didn't think of that angle or those words. And,
Yeah. I
should have
know.
had it to go.
I know. See, so I had made a mini series on my journey of Pistis Sophia, like learning about,
Oh,
this Gnostic Gospels that you'd never heard of. It was so foreign to me. And it took me on this journey. And so it's a private mini series and it has like 15 or 16 short episodes.
wow.
The people who I'd send it to were like, you got to make this into a book. And so I thought, okay. So I transcribed it first. I'm running it through now, the AI, and it's still my words, my
Yeah.
theories, my ideas. But like you said, it helps structure it a little bit better.
Oh, yeah. And you can tell it what perspective to have. Or,
Creative. Yes.
yeah.
I love
It's,
that. And I am very casual and so that was kind of the one thing is as I was writing, I was like, I don't want to write like some scholar. I'm
yeah.
not like that. Like I'm just casual. And literally these things that happened to me in my discovery came so divine and uniquely just for me.
Yeah. And with some of the AI, you can upload some of your stuff and go learn my style and then write it in my style.
Oh, that's
That,
really smart.
I mean, it's amazing what it can do in images too. I mean, you can create some really great images with it.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to play. So I love that you have like this tech side of you and
Yeah.
still the love for, science and for spirituality, and you're a seeker as well.
I was a corporate consultant for me. I still do a little bit with
Yeah.
leaders and teams. And actually, I've even worked on a number of like pharmaceutical companies, which is a trip as a healer.
Wow. Yeah. I hope you spread some healing also on top of whatever consulting you were doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everything I do is permission based, but it doesn't have to be conscious.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not accident if they get me. So I do a lot of energy work with them. And every now and then, somebody during a break will go, I know what you were doing.
You'll get someone awakened that'll be like, hey, wait a minute. This is more
Yeah.
than just my consultant here. Well, I love that, and I don't know if you know anything about me, about my ancestral journey, but when I saw that you've even taught courses or have some
Yeah.
sort of course on that, that's a huge part of my journey. And I actually have a program as well. It's a little bit different because it's more of, I work on their tree, on their actual tree, and I do the history. That's like fun for me. I've gotten really good at it. I've probably done like, I don't know. I used to say 100 trees, but we've gone way over 100 now. So how it started was with my own tree. So I spent 6 years working on my tree
Wow.
and my ancestry and through my DNA. And on my mom's side, I'm French Creole.
Wow.
So, and then on my dad's side, Czechoslovakian, Jewish. And so having both sides and understanding that, wow, I have a lot of trauma going on in my genes, that it was hidden purposely. If these things are within me and their stories have never even been acknowledged, how much of this is living out in my daily life? How much is this also passed down to my children, and who's going to be the one
Right.
to stop it?
And if you remember Madeleine Albright, she was a Secretary of State.
Mhm.
And it turned out she didn't realize her family had been Jewish. And then during the Holocaust, they converted and hid and everything. And nobody in the family even talked about it. She didn't even know. Somebody
Right.
found it, and let her know, like.
Yeah. I had no idea either. None. And I have a great percentage of Jewish, and I also have a great percentage of African American I didn't know. But I was the one to receive it because here I am in Colorado. We're the only family that left the South. And
Wow.
so I have a different upbringing. And I just find it was like I was the only one to receive this.
The whole ancestry thing, it's so amazing what people are finding out that, that they didn't have a clue about.
No,
you know?
and let me tell you something very interesting is that something started to happen within me. And actually, I didn't even seek this to happen, but I started to desire the need to know more
Mm.
about Jewish mysticism, especially. And I have
Right.
learned more from rabbis about Christian religion than I did ever 40 some, years in Christianity.
Well, you were raised Catholic, right?
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting. And so I love, actually, I talk to a rabbi often, and I want to do a segment called Drashing with a Rabbi. It's some of my most favorite conversations.
Interesting. And it's great when you realize you can embrace all this as your ancestry, that, I mean, on one level, everything's our ancestry, but it's neat to have that realize there's a strong connection to all this variety.
Right. Yeah. And it made me who I am. It's living in my DNA. And,
Mhm.
now at this point, I would say after all the work I've done, I'm really living off of the strength of the foundation of that. And that is what actually pushed me over the threshold to be able to receive inner wisdom.
That's
Yeah.
really fantastic.
So tell me how you got there when you started to figure out that there was something deep within us that we needed to acknowledge.
I don't remember what age it started, but I just knew, like, so that our unconscious minds had all these abilities that were miraculous. I knew that things like, extrasensory perception, I just knew all of that was real. And I never thought about it. I just sort of knew it. But what kind of held me back for a while was, the old idea that you were either born with these gifts or you weren't.
Yeah.
And so I was, well, the hypnosis and stuff, and the unconscious mind I explored, but the whole extrasensory perception and that part, I was kind of afraid to explore it because I was afraid I'd find out I wasn't one of those special people. And then, when I started studying it, I realized I was one of those special people. Then I realized that I wasn't one of those special people because everybody was one of those special people, you know, and that sure, it's like anything else, people come in with certain proclivities, but, I always tell my students, like anybody who wants to learn to do healing, energy work, psychic phenomena, channeling, any of that, anybody can learn to do it because they're all human abilities. It's not everybody's path, it's not everybody's interest, but this whole like, oh, the special people is just nonsense.
Yeah. That came up for me recently too when I looked at saints. I was studying some of the saints, only because they kept popping up along my journey, even Saint Sophia cathedrals in the middle of Kiev, and my journey with Sophia, and most people were like, well, who the hell is Saint Sophia? Who's Sophia? And actually there was no evidence of a Sophia. And
Really?
so I was doing, some history on saints, and I found I'm like, we all have these abilities and these
Right.
some of it's just decency in us, to be able to be sainted. Why is it just special for, those who have been named saints?
It was funny when I was little one time, I said to my father, I go, how come there aren't prophets? There's prophets in the Bible. How come there aren't prophets anymore? And he gave me a great answer. He said, well, there's people who say that they're prophets. I went, oh, okay.
I thought that same thing. I've pondered on that and just thought, well, did God just stop talking to us?
Yeah, right.
Or did we just stop listening?
Yeah. But that answer really worked for me because I understood what he was saying. It's like, there may be, that was all I kind of needed to know. Like, oh, okay. The other thing I asked him one time is, well, why would God care if we worshiped him or not?
That's a good
and that he just went, well, that's a good question. And he just kind of left me with it. But that worked for me because it was like, just validating that it was a legitimate question was all I needed.
wow. So I know in my journey, like synchronicities have led me, well, first I would say I had to obtain awareness first, but once I found awareness, it was hard to not be aware. And then in that space, there was all these synchronicities that were obviously the definition too good to be coincidences.
Right.
And I followed them because they were divine to me. They felt divine. That I was like, is this angel sending me this? Is it God? What is this? And then recently it shifted to, I believe it's maybe my higher consciousness, maybe a future self. Like I've come to give myself more credit than outside of me.
On all of my programs, that's one of the goals, is to have more and more delightful synchronicities. And on a lot of levels, I think everything's synchronistic, period. And like you, when people go, well, where do they come from? I think they can come from a lot of different sources. And, and even going, where do they come from, sort of presupposes that we're not all interconnected. If we're all interconnected, and includes spirits, guides, angels, God, deities, then, it doesn't even totally make sense to go, which one did it come from? But what I really like in what you said is I think we always are participants. It's not happening to us. We're co-creating it. And if I can tell you a real funny synchronicity, and in my programs, if people get too serious, sometimes I'll start singing children's songs because how serious, and of course they look at me like I'm nuts and they get into it. And one of my favorite is Old MacDonald because I like making the animal noises. And when I'm teaching to do healings and readings and stuff, if they're serious, they don't do anywhere near as well as I go, let's just play with this. And then their abilities skyrocket. But, in Old MacDonald, the chorus is E-I-E-I-O. And I've taught a lot, and I used to go to London like 5 times a year to teach for a few weeks each time. So I have a whole community in London. And I was walking with one of my students who'd become a close friend, and she and I are walking at night in London, and this woman is pushing this baby carriage, and the baby's completely silent. When they come even with us, the baby goes, E-I-E-I-O, and not another word. We're kind of looking like, do we know you?
Right.
It was just right when he was next to us. And then,
I love that.
well, when you asked me how I got into all this, everything about it was incredibly synchronistic. I went to a lecture on intuition, and here I was managing this research lab for University of California in San Francisco, and I was proud of the work we were doing. We were studying the effects, how the changes in estrogen and progesterone in a woman's body during pregnancy, how that was causing different effects in the body. And nowadays you would call it epigenetic research, but that was a new thing back then. And I went to a talk, but I was stuck. I was proud of what we were doing, but how like that feeling like this isn't what I should be doing. But I had no idea what I should be doing, and I'd always had a belief that something was just going to appear. But the years were going on. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm just kidding myself. I went to this talk on intuition, and during the break, I went out in the hallway, and there was a bulletin board with flyers on it. And I read the words neuro-linguistic programming. And when I read them, it literally felt like a bolt of lightning hit me on top of the head and went straight down my midline. It felt like boom. And the scientist in me was going, what was that? And the mystic in me was going, well, it was a sign. What do you think it was? So I walked back in the room, and I'm kind of stunned. They had a table where they were selling books on intuition. So I'm looking at it, and all the books are on intuition except for one. And I look at that one book, and it's on neuro-linguistic programming. And I went, okay. So I bought the book, and then everything about that. And through NLP, because I was studying in Marin County, north of San Francisco, where, if you throw a rock, you'll hit an astrologer, a yoga teacher, a psychic. So people started teaching me things and introducing me to my first teachers. And then everything just sort of took off from that.
But you had to follow the breadcrumbs.
Yeah. But even there, everything would be like this woman went, oh, this psychic, incredible psychic, Lynn Martin, and his wife, Stacy, and she's great too. They're going to be teaching a workshop next weekend, but we're just inviting people over on Wednesday, and they're going to do readings. And, things like that would happen. And he became my first real teacher. And, and just things just were the whole time.
So, discovering that you had this gift, that you discovered that everyone does have, there's a lot of like learning how to trust yourself, which does go back kind of to what we were talking about those patterns that are in your ancestry, they've been handed down, one generation after the other. I didn't come into this body not trusting myself, but yet there was something that I learned as I grew up and watched. And actually, I heard something that you said somewhere in something I was listening to you, and where you said this even begins when you're in the womb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you start absorbing energies from your parents and other people when you're in the womb, partially because you love them and you're trying to heal them, and partially because if the giants are in trouble, you're in trouble. So you start absorbing their emotional energies. But also, they don't know it, but they're programmed to program their children. Even if you never met your father and mother, they were still programming you. And of course, if you have step parents and stuff, every parent's programming their children outside of their awareness, which is a good thing to a point, because every child needs to know the rules of whatever family, society they're born into. But for people who be, watching your podcast, there are people that want to be authentic and they want to grow and evolve. And so we need to keep releasing the old programming and connecting more with the information from our spirit and from our deep inner human wisdom. And by the way, in my programs, I make people take a pledge that they're not going to believe what I tell them. They do that. They laugh. I ham it up too. I make them raise their right hand. And I go, I'm serious. I made up a term, beliefs du jour, like soup du jour. And I go, I don't believe what I'm telling you. This is what I think today. Hopefully, that's better to say. But I want you to consider what I'm saying and use it as a way to connect to the information from your own spirit and from your deep inner human wisdom, which will be better than what any teacher can ever tell you. So, this all comes back to what you said about trusting yourself. Not 100% trusting ourselves, to me, is a good thing, because every thought in our head, or even if you're channeling it, it doesn't mean it's true or right. There are always levels of understanding that are working with the level of our own development and understanding and knowledge. So if you think of the ancients, you're talking before about ancient knowledge, they had to explain like what are the stars? They had to explain things based on information.
Yeah.
So I think we get presented things in ways that we can deal with at that time. But as soon as we think we have the absolute truth, that's when we get in trouble. Neil Donald Walsh, I think in the interview, kind of addressed that too, that people don't question their own spiritual and religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that's a little doubt's a good thing. And when I teach people how to read other people's energy, they get all worried that, am I going to tell them the truth? And I always go, no, you're going to tell them what you perceive and the way you interpret it. And if you tell them it that way, you never hurt anybody. If you go, this is what I perceive, this is how I make sense of it, because you're always putting control back to them, and honoring that, like, I'm just telling you what I get. And when you do it from that level, it's always helpful. And sometimes you are like completely spot on. But even if you aren't, if you do it from that level, and like I say, every psychic, every channeler pollutes the information, you can't help it because it
filters.
In fact, I used to go to a spiritual center in Brazil a lot. And a friend of mine, an American who lived near there, she ended up building a house next to hers and she'd rent it out. And my friend had helped design the house and stuff, so we could always stay there whenever. It was always like ours when we wanted it. And so her cats knew me really well. And I like the belief that we're here to learn and grow. And every now and then I'd meditate and I'd go, is that why we're here? And I'd always get the same answer, which is, no, but that works for you. And then, a few months later, I'd meditate on, are we here to learn and grow? And I'd always hear, no, but that works for you. So I'm sitting outside in Brazil and I'm reading a book and one of the cats is by my feet. And for some reason I thought of it again and I got the same answer, no, but that works for you. And I went, well, why are we here? And I felt compelled to look at the cat, and a voice in my head said, we could as easily tell you what you're doing here as you could tell that cat while you're reading a book. So learn and grow works for you. That's fine. That sums up my philosophy, is I think we get information at a level we can handle. It stretches us. I don't think anything I get is like the ultimate truth. It's like when I teach people to work with chakras, it's useful to, like they look like little spinning vortexes and stuff. I think all of that's a useful fiction. It's like when I look at it, some of the chakra, it's dynamic and multidimensional, and but that's kind of hard to deal with. So I was just going to go, okay, show it to me like a spinning wheel or a vortex. But you get what I'm saying, that I think it's important to have a little bit of doubt. Well, here's how I think of it now. There's so many well-meaning people that I hear on podcasts and stuff, and they're always like, this is the truth. As if they're coming down from Mount Sinai with the tablets. And it's kind of like, no, these are great ideas. It's not the truth to me.
I found myself, as I was along my Reiki journey, putting myself back in a Reiki box. And so I had to kind of, even though I still teach it as a foundational practice, I think it's wonderful, to be able to teach people about their energetic systems. But I always say, make this your own. This is a foundation, but I had to pull myself back out. I said, I just got out of a box. And then I put myself back into a new one. Hey listeners, did you know that Sense of Soul has a network of Lightworkers affiliates program? Now you get to work with one of our inspiring guests, and I'd like to introduce you to one of our affiliates.
Hey listeners, this is Jennifer from The Soul Experience and host of the podcast, The Soul Traveler. I'm here to tell you about the most profound method of inner work that somebody can do while on a spiritual path. It's called quantum healing hypnosis. In a single session, you will revisit your past lives. Your subconscious will come forward to scan your body, looking for blocked emotions and health concerns. And then your higher self will answer the most important life questions you have. Your session is audio recorded, so you can play back all of the advice from your higher self. And you know you can trust the advice because it's coming from that part of you that is connected to Source. So if you're ready to take the next step on your spiritual journey, then visit me online at thesoulexperiences.com and be sure to mention that Shanna from Sense of Soul referred you.
You can also go to mysenseofsoul.com and in the menu, look for the Network of Lightworkers. Now back to our amazing guest. So yesterday, I want to share this. My daughter, 6 months ago, got this big loft bed and I put it together for her. It was back in April and it had a nice desk underneath and it was quite high. It had stairs. It took me like 2 days to put together. It was exhausting and it was expensive. And so she gets up there and right away I could see, she's quite high to the ceiling. And, she's like, I'm good. Well, every storm that we've had, she's sleeping on the floor. Oftentimes she's sleeping. Yeah, it hasn't worked out. So, and with school coming, I knew she needs to get a good night's rest. I mean, this has kind of been an issue, although she doesn't want to come to me and admit this.
Right.
So I finally said, it's okay. I care about your sleep and your health rather than us just saying we made a mistake on this bed. So we got a new bed yesterday, took down the old one. It was exhausting. 6 hours of taking down beds, putting back up new bed. And I took a break at one point. And I remember actually I said to her while I was building this, I'm like, I don't know a lot of people, Kens, that would go, her name's Kensley, that would go through these lengths. I'm going through great lengths right now, physically, mentally, financially. And not that I was saying it to make her feel guilty. I was just really, truly feeling all of that in the moment. I was sweating and exhausted. And then I took a break and I sat outside with my dogs, had to bring them out. And all of a sudden I was thinking, oh God, I was thinking no one would ever do this for their kid. Am I enabling her? And then all of a sudden it hit me. My dad would have done this. He did do this. He did this kind of stuff many times for me. And I didn't appreciate it. And now I appreciate it and it's too late. I wish I would have appreciated it when I was her age almost. You know what I mean? He did this stuff time and time again for me. And I mean, big things. Like I remember one time I blew my engine, he put a new engine in, and like a few weeks later, I traded the car in, and it was an Audi. So, I mean, just, stuff like that. And then I just cried. And my daughter, she saw that I was crying. She's like, what's the matter? And she's 11 and she comforted me and she held me and she was like, well, I appreciate you, Mom. And I just thought, well, we are evolving.
But that's such a great lesson because, after I was learning NLP and working with clients and hearing about people's childhoods, I was talking to my mom and I went, there's so many things I've never thanked you for that were just normal to me. Now that I hear what a lot of people's lives were like, it's like, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's that you let her, not in that guilty kind of, like a comedy movie way, but just kind of let her know. Because I do wish I'd have known to appreciate more of that when I was young, rather than thinking that's just normal.
Yeah, I think I was a spoiled brat actually, but I always look towards my mom who had that Southern hospitality, who taught me, not really was the model as was her sisters, her mother. I admired them as mothers. They're, such good mothers and they were martyrs,
Right.
And I looked up to that. And of course I've spent years shedding that and kind of finding strength and being nurturing again, because I almost became like determined I wasn't going to be a martyr. So then I lost the softness in me. So I had to find the balance. I mean, it's, I don't want to be a codependent, but that was part of my giving and loving and so where's the balance? And so that's really been a lot of my journey over the past years.
I can only imagine. And the other thing I like to, I don't have children, and often people ask me for you're not, but child rearing advice. And I always go, well, I don't have children, but you could try this. And almost
Yeah.
always say, it worked. And I always go, really?
Yeah.
But one thing that's fascinated me working with people is that no matter what you try to do as a parent, the child's always going to interpret it in their own unique way. And my favorite story around that is that one of my students had been like a very, anxious, fearful single mother. And she goes, my daughter is a strong, independent woman. And she goes, so one time I asked her, like, how did you end up that way with me as your mother? And she goes, well, it was because of that gift you gave me one Christmas. And she's going, what? I may have the name wrong, but there was some kind of like magic kitchen kind of, it was some kind of thing like that, for girls. Yeah. And the mother had very little money, single mother, but she finds one in a garage sale or something and gives it to the daughter. And the daughter is telling her, and when I got that, I knew anything was possible for me. and I laughed because I could, it could have easily been, well, you ruined my life because then I thought everything happened magically. And so I've never. So I think it's important. I think it's wonderful that people like you are thinking about how to be a good parent. And I think it's just important to realize kids are going to interpret it however they do, and that we're all on our soul journey. I think parents can relax a little bit too. I mean, I think we went from the time when people didn't think about good parenting at all. I thought, you got to feed the kids, take care of them, but not to the level like people now. And that I think people can make themselves a little crazy for trying to be the right parent.
Yeah.
And just, I was like, everybody comes in, we're not blank slates. People come in with their little personalities.
Yeah.
If more story about that. I used to like to ask men who consider themselves to be a good father or a bad father, why they thought that. Mm. The bad fathers all had the same story. My father wasn't a good father, so, I didn't have a good role model. The ones who thought they were good fathers were two camps. One, well, my father was a good father, so I had this good role model. But a lot of them, it was the opposite. My father was a terrible father, and I decided when I had kids, I was going to be a good. So I'm just saying, each little soul is coming in with their own.
You're so right. I think that because they have kids from two different generations, the mother I was before is not the same mother who I am now. Like the mother before wanted my children to be all these things because the world says this is what, a successful child looks like, and you're going to make me look better. Right? That's where I was. And then now, it's letting her lead me in how she's feeling and experiencing life. Everything that I do, even the decision about the bed, I felt into it. It was a feeling that I followed. It felt right to do it, and I did it. And I don't care if people want to judge me about buying my daughter 2 beds in 6 months. That's what we did.
Well, I love both of those, both letting her co-create with you and that you're trusting your guidance and your feelings. And I'm laughing because right before this, I was talking with my niece. They live in Rhode Island, which is where I am right now. And we were talking about like the ordeal I hear it can be, like getting kids dressed for the snow. And then immediately they have to go to the bathroom, all that stuff. And she goes, I'm talking about how one of them doesn't like wearing boots. And she goes, honestly, a lot of days he'd be fine without them, but the other parents would judge me. We're laughing.
Yeah. Gone are the days for this one right here. Yeah. And I love that these younger generations that are coming in are less conditioned. They just are.
When I was 17, I decided to take an ecology course. And the National Science Foundation had these courses at universities for high school students. And I got to get into this one. And they'd go, what are you doing this summer? Well, I'm taking a field ecology course. Eco what? And now I remember when my niece was 5, she knew what ecology was. I was like, now, I mean, they're so aware.
Yeah, they're so aware. I mean, Kensley has taught me so much. I mean, this poor child has cried over, like the Willow Project or, different things, and has scolded me on certain things that I could be, recycling. And
Wow.
And like, yeah, but teach me, right? I'm ignorant in a lot of that. My generation was happy to have chicken nuggets in a styrofoam box. I mean, it was great when those came out.
Yeah, and plastic, yay.
Oh, scary, scary stuff. And becoming aware of, I think, of yourself also expands. So that's why I think it's so amazing with them, because this has taken a decade just to become aware of what's within me, which then you can't help but to be aware of what's around you.
Yeah, no, I think you can criticize every generation, criticize other generations,
Right,
but and they've got their things to work on. But I just think young people and kids nowadays are pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you were too. I mean, taking an ecology class back then in as a 17-year-old, that's pretty amazing. I mean, do you know that I wanted to be a female pastor at that age?
Wow.
Which, is definitely outside of a box of growing up Catholic.
Yeah, way outside the box.
I was a little defiant.
Part of what happened for me, I happened to see this article that there was a really popular pesticide called DDT, that birds and stuff, and they eventually banned it. And I happened to see this article, and they were finding DDT in the tissues of penguins in the Antarctic. And
Wow.
so I'm reading that thinking, what? It's like, if it's in their tissues, what on earth is going on? And I was interested in science, so it's kind of like, I could extrapolate and kind of go, all these chemicals around that were just, and things happening that we need to learn about and get control of. Humanity's learning. We didn't, things were like, oh, this is a wonderful thing, and it killed mosquitoes, and at first they didn't realize what it was. And of course, then you had people that didn't want to ban it because they were making money. But before that, it was really well-intentioned people. And I think there's so much demonization going on, not by people like you, but in general nowadays, of people that think differently, and that it's important to appreciate that a lot of what people do had a reasonable intention underneath it. And in NLP and neuro-linguistic programming, we talk about every action has under it some kind of positive intention if you go deep enough. Even worst behaviors. And when you realize what that is, then you can connect with people on that level and then work with changing the behaviors. But as soon as we're deeming like they're bad, they're evil, they're this or that, then we just end up fighting one another.
Yeah, you are right. Even those who have always been at war with each other, they're all just fighting for, what they think is best, from their perspective. But, well, and it sounds like you're very good at reading people. I know for myself, being an empath, the times where I was unaware when I was around people, like I was a massage therapist for years, I'd come home, I'd be massaging someone's hurt leg. Now my leg hurts.
Right.
Or I'm around someone, they have jaw pain, and now I have jaw pain. And it started to get stupid. I mean, I'm like, what? Am I crazy? And then I realized, oh my gosh, I've been doing this since a kid with emotions. And then I had to learn to protect it. Now I see it as a gift. How much of that physical part of reading people is within your work?
Yeah. And actually, I have whole programs just dealing with empathy, being an empath, I should say. What's important, and it's funny because at this Lilydale, the spiritual center I was at, there were a lot of good healers, and a lot of them were very overweight, which I don't have any judgment on that. But often in a healer, that's a sign that they're not clearing other people's energy out of their energy field. A lot of emotional energy gets stored, in the navel area and below, and people unconsciously put on weight to kind of buffer it because they don't know how to do it. And typically people do one or two things. They often try to wall off the energies, and there's ways to deal with it. What I was taught and what I believe is that everybody's the sovereign of their energy field. So if somebody else's energy is staying stuck in you, it's hooking into something. Now, there's a lot to hook into. It can be karma, spiritual contracts, conscious beliefs, unconscious beliefs, energetic programming, ancestral programming. And a lot of the people that would be attracted to your podcast have been healers in other lifetimes or learned healing systems here, where the old-fashioned way to heal people was you took on their stuff and healed it in your space. Healers are unhealthy because unless you're really, really good at that, you end up, like you said, you end up taking on their things. And the more modern way to do healing is you don't use your own energy. And that was the other thing. And they're using their own energy.
Yeah. Draining themselves.
So they're sending their energy. And this is what I was originally taught, to send my life force to other people. And I was taking on their stuff. So they were great. I was going down the toilet until people were able to teach me to do it differently. So what I teach them, and how I was taught, was you use earth and universal energies, not your own, in the healing. So like if you're healing me, the healing's going on in my space, not yours. Now you may be getting a healing too, but it's your healing. My healing's happening over here. So one aspect of it is like helping people clear the programming that tells them the kind of martyrdom, I must take on your stuff. And people don't realize how glorified martyrdom is in our cultures. And sacrifice and martyrdom is wired in. And the kind of cousin of that is punishment. So we'll have a lot of programming about martyrdom, sacrifice. We should be punished because we were bad. I mean, you think about it, even Santa Claus, if you're a naughty kid, it isn't just that you don't get a gift, you get a lump of coal, you get humiliated. So it's just, and I'm not saying whether that was right or wrong for other parts of human history, but in the New Age, people are going, yeah, sometimes, you're a mother, sometimes you have to sacrifice, but we don't have to aim for sacrifice or glorify it. We don't have to glorify martyrdom or punishment. And so when you start clearing that programming and clearing the belief that you have to take their stuff on and give away your own energy, that's a big part of what I teach people, and working with karma and spiritual contracts, so that they learn other ways to help people where you're not taking on their stuff. And once they have the beliefs, then you can teach them different techniques. So for instance, say a lot of times people try to put up walls, and the problem with that is you've got walls. And you know what a lightning rod is. A lightning, for anybody who might not know, a lightning rod is a piece of metal you put on a house or a barn, and then you run a wire along the building into the earth. And so the lightning would hit the rod, and instead of going through the building, it goes around the building. Well, in a similar way, but the important thing there is you're not fighting the lightning. We all know what you resist persists. So you can imagine little symbols around you that they're grounded into the earth, and just set your intention and ask your spirit that when energies are coming towards you that aren't good for you, they go into the like a little symbol or ball of energy, and they go into the earth. So you're not fighting them, you're redirecting it. In the same way, you can also go, if I'm releasing energies that I don't want other people to have to deal with, my emotional energy, they can hit that little symbol and go into the earth. So you're not in resistance to anything. Those kind of techniques will only really work well if you change the programming and beliefs that you have to take on their stuff, or that you have to heal everybody. And it's funny, when I'm teaching people to do healing, and this relates to the whole empath thing, a lot of times they then think they have to heal everybody or anybody who wants a healing from them. And I like to say to people that are Christians that I go, it doesn't say in the Bible that Jesus healed everybody. They make a big deal about when he did heal people. So if Jesus didn't, I'm not saying he could or couldn't, that's a different belief system, but it's clear he didn't heal everybody. And I go, if Jesus didn't heal everybody, why do you think you have to? And they usually laugh and go, I didn't think about it that way. So when you start changing the conscious and unconscious beliefs, then the last part of that that I'll mention is that is learning how to do the healings in their space, not in yours. So all of these things come together, and then it keeps you from taking on their energy and then having either their emotions which is so common. I mean, most of the difficult emotions people have, it's not even their energy.
I know. I say that all the time.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because I mean, working with energy, and that's the other thing, as you work and have more experiences with energy, you start to, just like you would working with any sense, you start to, that smells like guinea pigs in here. Right? I don't even have to see them. I smell them.
Right.
You start to notice energy in that way. Yeah, it's kind of stinky. But
smelling a guinea pig.
yeah, but the energetics of those little guinea pigs, they're interesting, that's for sure. I just had this amazing experience with an animal intuitive over the past few weeks, and I can't wait to release her episode. She's magnificent.
Oh,
I
I
don't
want to
know
listen.
how she knew my dogs.
Because I want to learn. I met some people at Lilydale who did that because I haven't put attention on that before. So,
Well, being outside, I didn't grow up where anyone said you should just be with the earth. Breathing is important, all these things. In fact, the only time I was by myself, I was punished. Usually it was punishment to be alone. Right. So now, shifting my perception and just being with me outside, nature and birds and animals have become such, just, I marvel at them. Just, it's amazing. I mean, watching the freaking squirrels in my tree sometimes, it's like going to a Barnum's and Bailey circus. I'm amazed what they can do.
Well, it's so funny you're bringing this up because of those animal communicators. When I was in Lilydale, I was watching the squirrels, and there were these, I'm not sure if they were toads or frogs, but it was at night, and they were all hopping away from me. And I thought, well, I'm going to try animal communication. So this one, I went, would you let me pet you? I'm not going to pick you up or hurt you. And it worked. So the day I tried it with some frogs, didn't work at all. So I don't know if it was so funny because I just sort of mentally talked to him, and he didn't let me pet him. But the frogs, they weren't having it.
They're like, we have salmonella, dude. You don't want to touch us.
It's funny you would bring it up because I was really having fun watching the squirrel wars and the chase each other and all that.
I know, it's truly remarkable. And my dog, I'm now I know why my dog sits there and watches them and tries to join in.
I don't know what it meant, but there are ravens that they're doing construction across the street from me in the Hollywood Hills where I live. And the ravens that used to live there now, like my roof, a couple months ago, I woke up and I'm hearing this bang, bang, bang. And there's a raven at the window looking at me and going bang, bang, bang with his beak, looking at me, going bang, 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 looking at me.
Wow.
And I thought, Edgar Allan Poe. But I never figured out what it was about, but it was okay, I see you.
Yeah, I've had some pretty amazing moments like that with hawks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We have got really big hawks here in Colorado. Well, I don't know if they have them everywhere this big, but in my neighborhood, they're pretty darn big. Mm-hmm. And they'll take a dog, if it's small enough, for sure. Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, I've had some pretty amazing. In fact, I even caught a hawk totem one time on video, flying with a hawk. It was pretty amazing. Yeah. But see, there you go with technology now, we're able to kind of catch, some of these phenomenons. Yeah. And, it's kind of for me, it's not I never saw it in time. A lot of times these things, show up afterwards where I'm looking at a picture or something like that. I mean, just look at UFOs. We wouldn't have believed just if, they just had a story. We didn't believe when they just had stories.
Well, it was funny. I was teaching some workshops in London a month ago, and I was walking with a friend of mine near Greenwich Park, which is this old, beautiful park. And the subject of butterflies came up, and a friend of mine lives on a street called Red Admiral Street, which is a kind of butterfly that I guess used to be common in England, not as common anymore. And my friend's going, oh, that's a good name for a street. And I went, yeah, I don't know what a Red Admiral butterfly looks like. Within seconds, one comes and lands a couple feet in front of the foot. And we're taking pictures of it. we startled it and it flew off and it came back to the same spot. And she goes, they look like that. It was
that kind of synchronicity is just undeniable. So beautiful.
And I think sometimes the message, like, so my full name is Arthur, people call me Art, and those aren't common names.
Yeah.
And twice I've been channel surfing and I'd hear Art, Arthur, Art. And both times I would meditate and go, okay, you've got my attention. What's the message? And both times it was just, we're just reminding you life is magical.
Okay. Can you hear how magical it is? Yesterday, me and my daughter, while we were building the bed, she wanted to listen to soundtracks of movies. So we started out with Sing, and then we did like Shrek. And then I was like, let's do Grease. And then I was like, ooh, there was a movie that I loved the songs. This movie with Dudley Moore, and I can't remember the name of it. And I sat there and racked my brain, and never did I remember it until the minute you just said your name.
Arthur.
I loved that movie. Liza Minnelli.
Right. Yes.
I just remembered that too.
Yeah, that was a fun movie.
And they have a great soundtrack. I'm going to go listen to it after this because I was so mad I couldn't remember it.
That is very funny. The funniest thing with my name is they used to have a magazine in Paris called Periscope, and it was everything going on, that week or month, in Paris. And it was the first time I'd taught in Paris. And my sponsors, I showed up and they go, you're going to love this. This is the new Periscope magazine. And on the cover, it goes Art in capital. And all around the metro, there were posters with the cover on it. And they go, do you feel? And I go, yes, I feel very well.
But yeah, thank you so much, because I know what song it is. It's like Once in a Life. I could sing it, but I don't want to ruin the episode. I seem to sing all the time. But yeah, thank you, because it was driving me crazy. So see, it's those little moments. I don't know why. I know I have to listen to that song.
Well, and I encourage anybody listening that if you just set the intention that you want more delightful synchronicities, they just start happening, and put something like delightful before it, because synchronicities can be very not fun. But the other thing is, if when you have more synchronicities in life, you can't judge everything second by second. So
right, you gotta be logical. If they have,
you have to see how it plays out. So
yeah,
place in Marin County I would go to, and we were studying, psychic development, and everybody was going to go meet in this cool coffee house in a very popular area in San Francisco. So everybody else had found parking but me. And I'm feeling, you can't even manifest a parking spot, and everybody else did, and I'm kind of criticizing myself. I finally find parking. I get out of the car, and I ran into a friend of mine I hadn't seen for years, who I wouldn't have run into had I got, so that's what I mean. Sometimes when it doesn't seem to be working,
there's a reason.
You see, you have to kind of let it play out a little bit,
Yeah. I mean, I love this.
I find so many people, they'll get an initial sign that they don't understand, because it's like I've occasionally had people go, well, I was going to take your workshop, but all this stuff got in the way. So I took it as a sign. And I go, usually that's a sign that you should come. I had a woman actually come late to one of my workshops once, and she was going, I'm sorry, and had all this trouble getting here. So I know this is going to be life-changing, because whenever I have trouble getting to a workshop, it means the resistance is up, because my life's going to get better. And before I studied NLP, my first class, I severely sprained my ankle. I probably actually fractured some bones. I had to borrow crutches from a friend, and there was no Uber or anything. So I had to take like buses and taxis. And it was like,
no parking spot.
But actually it was all the resistance was, things were trying to block me, the unconscious resistance. For people, it's not like evil or bad. It's just, try to avoid change, even positive change. And the biggest mistake in my life would have been if I hadn't shown up, because everything was magical once I showed up. They initially go, does anybody need transportation for the next 5 days? So it hasn't even started yet, and I have rides for the rest of the time.
Okay, so don't be afraid of of what you may see as a warning, or don't make every obstacle a warning, is what you're saying.
Surface. And what I always encourage people to do, you can meditate on it and just go, okay, you've got my attention. Is there a message? And you won't always get an answer, but a lot of times you will get some kind of an image or words or feelings. And again, sometimes the first things that come up are not the deep truth. So you might have to do it a few times. I mean, I do think spirit talks to us, but it isn't always what we're expecting.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Ram Dass? Yeah, he died a few years back. And if anybody's not familiar with him, amazing person, beautiful spirit. And his mother and father, when they were, every anniversary, his father would give his mother a single red rose. Mm-hmm. And his brother and his father were fairly conservative, or at least normal, mainstream. And Ram Dass, he had been a professor at Harvard and was one of the early LSD investigators. But what it did for him is it opened him. He actually worked with Tim Leary and stuff, but he went into spirituality directly and changed his name to Ram Dass. But so he's talking about at his mother's funeral, and he goes, he's trying not to smile because he's just feeling all the love for his mother. And he goes, if I smile, they're going to go, that's the one that does drugs. So it's and there were all these red roses on his mother's casket. And when they were wheeling the casket by the father, one red rose fell off at his father's feet. And he goes, even my lawyer brother had to admit it was a sign. But then the story gets better, because he goes, then they're trying to figure out, well, what do you do with that rose? You can't just throw it away. So they found out there was a company that would encase it in plastic with an inert gas. You could have it forever. Wow. So they did that, but there was a mistake in the process. So the rose is inside there disintegrating. But Ram Dass said, he goes, I think that was the real message, that we didn't need to hold on to the rose.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that would seem negative at first, but to him, it was like, but that was the real message. There was a message of love, and then the message of like, let go, don't try to hold
what
on.
I'm getting from all this that I never have thought of before is don't stop at the fear.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, of course, there's going to be some fear, and it does scare a lot of us away. Like, don't stop there. There's something beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, the first NLP course I took, it was a super advanced course. I had no business being in it, but I just had to find out if it was real. But, besides, really messing up my ankle, it was real expensive. I had to take, it was 5 days and 5 days the next month. So I had to take 6 vacation days and, and a lot of money and all this. And I had no idea if it was even going to be any good. I knew the teacher was supposed to be good. And so I'd reread the pamphlet flyer 8,000 times, but I just kept going. But I could feel like, no, I'm supposed to go. It's like my logical mind had a million reasons not to go, but I just could feel something was telling me to go. So if it stopped me, my life would have been so different. I can't even imagine what my life would be like now compared to where it is.
Wow. That's awesome. That's a lot of wisdom there. And I think that that's something really I'm going to take with me today. And I'm going to be very conscious of that. So thank you. I've definitely learned a lot from you today. That's a huge one, because even if I may have known it, it was not conscious to me. So, and I think to a lot of people, I hear this all the time. I just heard this yesterday from someone. One of my listeners was debating whether or not to take one of my guest programs, and was really like, I hope I'm doing the right thing. It's a commitment, and
yeah,
but she was really called. I mean, of all the things that she could have listened to and chose, that was the one. So moving just past that fear, because there's definitely, like you said, it's all connected somehow divinely. I mean, I'm super excited to get off and listen to Arthur soundtrack.
I have to listen to it too. It is great.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah. I guarantee you there's some wisdom in there I'm supposed to receive.
Well, it's funny you're bringing it up because I used to go, Arthur gets such bad press, other than King Arthur. Arthur in the movie, he's a drunk. I go,
Yes.
the butlers, drunks, or they're really noble, but they don't know what's really going on.
Well, if it makes it any difference to you, I loved Arthur's character.
Oh, good.
But see, that's me. That's my personality, right? So I see someone in need. In fact, I'm around a lot of alcoholics. I've been in Al-Anon my whole life.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, for most of my adult life. So yeah. And I really appreciate you coming on and spending this time with me.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to have been here. And I think you're doing such great work in the world, and your podcasts you have amazing people, and you just create a great energy around it. And you're really just putting out something really wonderful in the world. And I love that it's not dogmatic like so many well-intentioned people are. I just really love what you're doing. So I'm thrilled to be able to contribute a little bit to it.
Well, thank you very much. I feel like a student, and I feel so fortunate. Tell everybody where they can find you, and where they might be able to even work with you.
So the best way to experience my work, if you go to Blockbuster, one word Blockbuster, and then the numeral 7.com, blockbusterlucky7.com. If you sign up there, you'll get a video a day for 4 days that will take you through some really powerful, transformative energy work. And you can just listen to it, and they're energized. And if you imagine it's happening live while you're watching it, you'll experience really profound changes. I've gotten so much great feedback from people on it. And you'll also learn some energy techniques that are simple, easy, that you can do on your own to keep moving forward. I have everything from on-demand programs to a year-long training to one-to-one sessions. And you can contact us at support at Energetic, ENERGETIC, Energetic NLP.com, NancyLarryPeter.com. And but really a great way to start is just to sign up for the Blockbuster videos, and you'll really get to experience the work, and then you'll know if you want to do any more. But if all you did with the Blockbuster videos, you'd find it would really change your life.
Wow.
On Sundays, if you go to changetheworldfromyourlivingroom.com, I do a world healing meditation that also at the end is a personal mental, emotional, spiritual, physical healing. And that's every Sunday. It's 10 a.m. Pacific time, California time. changetheworldfromyourlivingroom.com. You can sign up there, and every Sunday, and very, very powerful healing. The reason I do them together is, I talk about like the old ideas of sacrifice and martyrdom. I want people to benefit when they do good, when possible. So we do a world healing, then you get your own healing, so that people really tie it together. And it takes about 45 minutes. It's easy. It's fun. You learn how to put your spirit in charge, and then you just relax and let the magic happen.
I love it. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. And again, thank you for the wonderful work you're doing in the world.
Once in your life, you find her, someone who turns your heart around, and next thing you know, you're closing down the town. Wake up and it's still with you, even though you left your way across town. Wondering to yourself, hey, what have I found? When you get caught between the moon and New York City,
Thanks for listening to Sense of Soul podcast, and thanks to our special guests for joining me. If you want more of Sense of Soul, check out my website at www.mysenseofsoul.com, where you can work with me one-on-one or help support Sense of Soul podcast by donating to my coffee fund. Thanks for listening. I love it. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. And again, thank you for the wonderful work you're doing in the world.